Welcome to TechRect. I'm your host, Alicia Kellstrom, with a background in B2B tech software and sales. I've spent the last few months exploring new opportunities, and along the way, I've had the privilege of meeting incredible people with fascinating experiences that I can't wait to share with you. Whether you're looking to break into tech, navigate tech tooling, or even coping with the hardship of layoffs, these stories will inspire, inform, and entertain you. Let's jump right in. Welcome back to TechRect. Today we have Kailey Trussel. Kailey and I met through Katie, and Katie's episode was so long ago, but when Kailey and I first chatted, it was months ago. So I'm so excited to finally get to revisit our conversation, to hear about your experience. I want everyone to know, basically want to hear what you've been seeing in the market, in the job market right now. But to start off, well, first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited for our conversation. And to start us off, why don't you just give us a quick synopsis of your professional background, what area of work you specialize in, and what you've been up to?
Yeah, I think I'm a little different than the majority of your guests in that my background is in UX, user experience. You have user experience research, user experience design, and my background's primarily been in user experience research. There's a lot that can fall under the umbrella of user experience. This includes people who are, like I said, designers, researchers. You can have strategists, content strategy, UX writers. It's all in the name of we just want to make the app a better user experience for folks. Any product that they're using, we're looking at it holistically of how do we make things easier for people? How do we help them reach their goals quicker? Why they're using the app. So my background's in psychology. I just love people. I think that people are interesting. I love asking them questions and learning why they do what they do. And it wasn't until after I graduated college that I learned that there's this thing called user experience, where it's that intersection of studying human behavior and technology. So as soon as I found out about it, I transitioned into tech, working at just startups. That's where a lot of my background's been. It has been in startups. I had a very short stint at an agency, and that's the extent of it. I really did a little academic research right after graduating and really hated it a lot. So it's been, although the tech industry in itself also has, as we know, has also wrecked me in its own ways.
Yes, well,
Yes,
that's the
yes.
whole purpose of this conversation.
Yep.
Okay, how did you entree into tech? So you said that
Yeah.
you went from graduating and then you did a short stint in academic research, but what was it like? What year was it and getting into tech initially?
I actually really love that you asked this question because I'll start with I had a mentor. Like, they were the person who introduced me to UX. They had reached out to my academic research team and were interested in looking at some of the research we'd done for their own app. It's called Marco Polo, if you're familiar. I'm
I
like a
am
huge
familiar.
I'm a huge Marco Polo ambassador. I
Oh
love Marco
man.
Polo. It's my most used app for sure.
What?
It's like video voicemail
Yes.
with your friends.
Yes.
Anyway, so they had reached out to us, to my team, and that is how I met their head of UX research, Lore. And they introduced me to this thing called UX, and I asked them, I said, how do I get your job? Like, I want to do, it was like this heavens opened moment. And I think a lot of people in UX have that same experience of being like, this is what I want to do. And so Laura had recommended to me, go get a job as a product support specialist at a startup. That's probably one of the easiest ways to transition into tech. And especially with user experience, because you're on the front lines, you are the one talking to users, to humans, to people who are like, hey, I'm having this issue, like, please fix it. And at a startup, you're able to have a bit more influence. You're able to highlight things, advocate for things more. And I think it was honestly such great advice because it was easier to pivot. And this is December 2019 is when I got my job at NurseGrid, which was the first startup. This is December 2019, what, 3-4 months before
Oh
the
man.
world changed forever.
Yes.
So that was where I started. Most of my tech experience was right before then. So I got to jump into working remotely pretty quickly. But it was an amazing opportunity. I really did enjoy working at NurseGrid. Had a lot of opportunities to grow, to learn the ins and outs about tech, to have a lot of eggs in a lot of baskets and influencing, again, learning more about my love for UX, where I got to highlight saying, hey, we're seeing a lot of people having issues with this thing here. How can we address this? How can we take care of this? So yeah, that's just what my first start into tech was, December 2019.
Incredible. And also like tech and then also super small startup. That's where you really have to be wearing all the different hats and you get exposure to
Mhm.
every function. And I did not know or appreciate that when I was starting out.
Yeah, right. It's like a, what do they call it? Like baptism
Oh,
by fire,
yes,
Yeah.
baptism by fire. Yes.
That's how I felt. You just get thrown into the deep end. I should have mentioned this too. The other super crazy thing about it though was that NurseGrid got acquired March 2020. It was the same week that the world shut down. So the same week that
Oh,
we had these, a big company coming in to talk to us and we knew something was happening, was the same week that they were like, okay, actually everybody go home. We'll revisit this. So we had to go through this transition into pandemic and also transitioning with a acquisition at the same time.
oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that is crazy.
it was great learning opportunities.
Yes. And
Again, just got
also,
a little bit of everything.
and like you're so new to your
Yeah,
career. I mean,
right.
you're like, what is happening?
Right, exactly. Acquisition, what are all these words of
Yeah,
user retention? I don't know. It was
that
fun.
and Marco Polo had a moment
Yeah,
in the
right. That was
pandemic.
crazy too. I was doing like small contract work for them prior to that, like helped out a little bit here and there, but I think it really took off, yeah, after I had
Oh, I miss those days actually. I miss
yeah,
the house party and Marco Polo's silly and then the Snapchat
that one.
integration to
I
Zoom.
mean, oh, what? I didn't even
Yes.
know they did.
Do you remember there was a video of a guy or a screenshot of a guy at a in a corporate like
Yes.
big job that had a
Yes.
potato head filter?
Yes. I do remember that, but was that because of Snapchat?
I think it was a Snapchat filter.
Oh, I did not
Yeah.
know that. Okay. Good to
Oh
know.
man.
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah, good times.
your intro is so funny that like when we first started our call today and we're using Squadcast, it's kind of a new tool. They're integrated with Descript, which is the tool that I use to edit the podcast. And the whole conversation about putting on that virtual background is
Mhm.
like it makes sense now the way that you were exploring it. I was like, dang, she's already in like the help documentation.
Yep. I Yes,
Fancy
yeah, and
background.
probably my background of that was me. I had to be writing those articles or writing that stuff for folks to get help when they were having issues. So
Oh man, that
yeah,
is funny. So I don't need to tell them because you'll probably do it.
yeah, exactly. I would love to get paid to do that. I would love
Yeah,
to be the one to be like, hey, you guys need to do this to your app to make it a better user experience. So
that's wild. Well, I
yeah.
bet you they're hiring and it would be right up your wheelhouse.
I
Uh,
will check their career page out after this.
that's a good
We'll
segue.
see.
So you were at Nurse Grid and then
Yes.
I met you and you've been promoting a a post that kind of went viral on LinkedIn. You're
Yes.
super hireable. And
Yes.
so tell us about that.
That's my little small claim to fame. It's been very fun. Okay. To tell the story of Super Hireable, I got laid off from my last job in November of 2022. So I've been at this for a hot minute.
Oh, wow.
And I I had also gotten laid off 6 months, not even, I think it was 5 months prior to that. So I had two layoffs in less than 6 months. And I really was just like, everything that you've heard from job seekers, like bottom of the barrel, really just feeling like, I don't know, I'm so lost. I have no idea what I'm doing, all the existential crises, but still trying to be like, maybe I'll just keep trying to message people on LinkedIn, be really subtle about it. I don't want to announce that I'm open to work because how embarrassing. I just got a new job not even 5 months ago, or at that point, I'd gotten a new job 5 months after having lost another job. I
Yeah.
just felt embarrassed about it. I didn't want to address it publicly. So, but then we got to, I think it was April. So this is April of 2023 that I was like, okay, I need help. Like I'm struggling here. I talked to my partner and was like, could we maybe look at me getting a career coach? I just need somebody else's help here because I'm feeling really alone in this job search. And so I found Amy Santee. So shout out to Amy. I highly recommend her. Again, this is going to be for UX folks overall, but Amy's just a wonderful individual in general. And met with her for a career coaching session. And before we met, she made me fill out this extensive questionnaire that made me address everything that I didn't want to address. What are you looking for? What do you want? What are you good at? What are you not good at? What are you most proud of? What is standing in your way? It was so comprehensive, and it was honestly actually very cathartic to go through it and have to type everything out. And so I just had to actually start articulating more about what was I looking for in my career. And then when we actually met, Amy really helped me with kind of just dealing with the feelings I still had of after getting laid off and realizing like there's still a lot of residual just feelings that I was struggling with. And she also super encouraged me to post on LinkedIn. She was like, you just got to do it. You need to put yourself out there. You need to tap into your network. And I think I just needed somebody else's validation. And, she also was good at being like, you are way cooler than you think, way more accomplished, have way more success than you realize. Because I think you need that kind of support, validation in a job search, because it's really easy to get hard on yourself about your skills, what you're capable of, your experience. But I should also say Super Hireable came from a couple of things. So that was one of the first things was Amy's encouragement and that questionnaire, having to fill that out. And then the other thing was somebody from my LinkedIn liked this post from, I think he's a big deal in the sales world, is Mark America Smith. I came across his post where he was like, if you are looking for a job, do not message me to saying like, I need help. I need you to tell me what it is you're looking for. I need you to tell me what you are interested in, what you've done. You need to be more specific if you actually want me to help you. And so that seed had also been planted in my head, was that if I'm going to reach out, then I need to actually help the people help me.
Right.
And then the other last piece I feel like of what helped put Super Hireable together was a mentor that I came across from a design mentoring. They're called ADP List. Her name is Jiaorui Jiang, and she made this really great presentation that I've shared on LinkedIn, talking about how we as job seekers a lot of the time we're trying so hard to fit into the job description box. We're trying to check all their boxes. We want to just fit perfectly into what they are saying, and how, especially if you're transitioning into a new career, if you don't have the background that they're looking for, that actually is making you're blending in more. You're not actually standing out to the job, to hiring managers, to recruiters. So she reframes it in her presentation that she put together. I found so helpful, and I really recommend everybody to check it out. It's really more about reframing the story that you're telling about yourself and actually speak more to why do you stand out? Like, why are you different? Why does your background actually, even though it's different, like it's okay that it's different, and here's why.
Hmm.
So taking those three pieces together, again, I marinated a lot on, it was a lot for me to post on LinkedIn. I was so like, I'm never going to be a LinkedIn person. I kind of put all this together. I was like, I know that I need to do something different with when I announce that I'm open to work. I want it to stand out. I just had noticed so many people posting the exact same thing of being, I'm really sad I've been laid off, which I know it's sad. There's a lot of hard feelings. If you know of anything, please let me know. And it's just this block of text. And I, maybe just with the design background, was I want to do something that's going to make people stop on their screens and force them to actually look at me more instead of just reacting to it, liking it or
Hmm.
something. I wanted something that people would actually engage with. So, all of that context background being said, I then put together, it's just a slide, a PDF carousel on LinkedIn. And I started with this bold picture of me. It says, me, Kaylee, a super hireable person. And it goes through, it talks a little bit about me. Here's what I'm looking for. I also put, here's how you can help me. Like this post, engage, connect me with somebody who you think might think I'm cool. Check out my portfolio, give me feedback, whatever. So I told people, I was like, here is exactly, I try to make it as easy as possible for them to know exactly how they could help me and be as specific as possible. And I put, here's what I'm looking for. This is what I care about. These are my values when it comes to work. A lot of this content came from the questionnaire that I did with Amy, and also from Jiaorui's presentation of here's why I stand out. Here's why I'm different. Here's my experience. And people really, really liked it. It got a lot of attention. I think as of right now, I'm like over 118,000
Oh,
impressions when I
wow.
last checked. I also want to say that I showed it to my sister before I posted it, and she is much in a very different industry field than I am. She's like, I can never post this. Like, this is too silly. This is so ridiculous, or whatever. It wouldn't work in my field. And I was like, okay, I just got to not listen to that. And I
Yeah.
know that this is very authentic and true to me. I knew that if I posted it, the right people would see it, or it would resonate with who would also love it the same way I know I would love it if I came across it. So after all, it got a lot of attention. People were like, this is cool, this is different. And I was just overwhelmed. I just really, truly did not think it was going to blow up as much as it did. And from there, I had so many job seekers reaching out, being like, this was so cool. I want to do something like this. So I turned it into templates so that other people could make their own super hireable posts. And now I want to say it's at least 60 people who shared or posted or credited me for inspiration for making their own posts. And I actually, even yesterday, I think now 4 people have gotten jobs because somebody first saw their post. Obviously, they were skilled, they were experienced, they had to also have all their other stuff together, but that was the difference between them getting put in front of the right eyes that now they've gotten a job. So that's my really long rant about the experience of making my super hireable post.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Also, the super hireable post itself is super vibrant, very big, saturated, bright colors,
Yeah.
beautiful. I just loved the way it pops. Everything else is so muted and just,
Right.
and so it really, and I talked about this with another guest, but authenticity in yourself, if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
mute yourself in your job search, then you're never going to show up to work as your authentic self, and then you won't produce work that's as good as you can do because you're
Yeah.
constantly going to be feeling like I have to be this other version of myself. So being forthright with that from the get-go is so important, and you will
Yeah.
find the right environment that can handle color,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. That's what I would want to be somewhere that, because that is very much my personality. I'm a big colors person. I'm very bold, bright, very attracted to all those things. And that's where I'm like, that's where I would want to be. That's the kind of place I want to work at as well. So it's authentic to me. That's where I would say if somebody else that's not their vibe, like, then make one that is more aligned to your brand, your aesthetic, whatever you want to say. Yeah, I want everyone to just be authentic with what they're sharing about themselves.
Yeah. And so, what do you think? First of all, you've been in the job market longer than most people that I know that I've talked to.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that they've either been looking since like mid 23 or future forward. So, like, you've been looking since November 22, and let's say you
Mhm.
took like a month or two. So, January 23 potentially. That's a long time. What's the
It
market like for you?
is.
Is it just I thought anecdotally like there was a big gap for recruiters for a minute. Like there were
Mhm,
no recruiting jobs. And like
mhm.
somebody recently told me there's like no marketing jobs right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not in that role or whatever and I'm not
Right.
paying attention. But is it just that maybe that user experience right now there's just like not a lot of jobs?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of discourse and conversation around this that I'm really open to them all contributing to it in some capacity. I think you see a lot of hard part about UX work is that what's always best for the user isn't always best for business. So you see a lot of UX teams getting cut because they're not seen as providing monetary value, where I would argue that good UX work can impact a lot of different things. It's making us more efficient. We're able to save more time because people are able to resolve issues better. There's like a lot of metrics that UX can speak to, but it's a bit harder to translate at times, I think, to monetary value or to the shareholders. The shareholders are like, I don't care. about this. So I think that's where you see a lot of UX work getting impacted. I think AI has also been impacting a lot of UX work where, which could be said for everybody, but you're seeing design work. Oh, just AI can do that, or content writing, UX writing, have AI do that, which we're always going to need somebody to be monitoring that, to be supervising that. But I think that's where you've seen some level of impact has been businesses investing more in their AI rather than people, than their employees.
Hmm. And the AI hallucinates. I was doing a contract job and trying to finesse some outbound messaging, and I used an AI, generative AI, to write some messaging to research that prospect and that prospect's company.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like validating the messaging, and they were like, the person I was working with was like, "What's this?" And it was for a completely different company, but under
Yeah.
the same type. And I was just like, "Oh, dang, I'm glad you caught that because I wouldn't have, because I was just on contract. I
Right.
didn't necessarily know that." So that's wild. But so what are
Yeah.
you seeing now? Because for me, I thought earlier this year, January, February, things were starting to open up. So are you seeing more opportunities out there now?
I think I am seeing more opportunities. Like I've seen more people who are getting hired now, which is so great. Like I said, a couple of folks in the last couple of weeks have gotten jobs. So I think it is opening up. I think part of what's hard is job descriptions are just hard in general. Maybe there's a lot of jobs with UX research. I can see how that could be really transferable to a different type of job, but maybe because I don't have typically that job title on my resume, uh, then I would get passed over for things, even though could make a case of why I actually could be really still good in this capacity overall. So I think what I see is people maybe it looks different than what they were expecting as a job overall. As far as UX research, I do see more UX research, but a lot of them are very senior, which I think is again another typical thing you're seeing is they're like, we want somebody who is way more experienced than a lot of the entry level or those of us mid level career folks. When you can have anybody anywhere, so there are more jobs, but still not enough. I'm not seeing enough opportunities for us lower level, lower class job seekers.
Interesting. But you have some interviews going on right now.
Yes, well, I did. I have a final round on Monday, and so waiting to hear back. Fingers are so crossed. I really want it. I also wanted to say that I have been searching way more than other people. I also am not that person I've applied to 1,000 jobs, like received this many. I think in a weird way, because of my super Hireable poster, because I got so specific of kind of what I was looking for, I'm way more selective about where I apply. I'm also super privileged in that I have a partner who has been able to provide for us financially. I have had a couple random contract jobs. I've been nannying for my family friend. I do other jobs. I have some things, but as far as like the place where I'm going, I haven't applied to as many. So I think that's where maybe, yes, I have taken longer, but I am way more selective about where I apply. And this was something that Amy Santee said in a Q&A she was a part of, where it really, for job seekers, like advice she gives is what's your priority at the moment. If your priority is that I need to be making money right now, that is the urgency. And again, I've heard every story, and I can't express how much it makes my blood boil of just what job seekers are put through. I know about people who have applied to be at fast food restaurants and they're getting rejected from there because they're like, we know you're going to leave as soon as you get another job. I absolutely believe that that's happening. So it doesn't help, but that's where I would say if your priority is money, then maybe you are okay with taking a bridge job, doing something else that is not contributing to the career you actually want to be in full time. But or if your priority, which is probably for me, has been, I'm at a point now that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go find something else. I think because there money is the urgency. I've wanted to just find somewhere that way more closely aligns with what I'm looking for, doing the type of work I want to do, somewhere that I feel like my values align, which so far I would say like generally that's what I've interviewed for. And this last place that I'm hoping to work at is well aligned with that.
Good. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's another really important component. Like, you need to have the ability to be your authentic self. And so
Yeah.
that shows up in how you interview and how you present yourself. But also, the values need to align. You need to,
Yeah.
and that was something for me when I was initially looking at potential job opportunities. And I was like, oh, I don't really know anything about this industry or
Mm-hmm.
this solution. And it was clear, like, and there's also just so much supply. So there's so many
Mhm.
people in the job market that have that background and the passion for
Yeah.
that company or that
Right.
solution thing, right? So like
Right.
you can't compete with that. So as
Yeah.
long as you're super focused on your values and you have the ability to be selective. I mean, that is definitely a component as well. Like if if you have the runway and you can be selective, and then there's folks that can't pay their mortgages, and it's really really sad.
Yeah, no, I again don't there's so many things wrong. That's where I wish that we could talk more, focus more on the systems at play here. But I will say with the super hireable or just I want to say the movement that's come from it, it's just something. I know that it hasn't gotten everybody a job. I wish it hasn't even gotten me a job yet. I used my visual cover letter for this like the last couple ones I've gotten has been because I've done my visual cover letters that I do that are specific. It's like my super hireable post, but specifically for a job.
Hmm.
It's been something that has empowered me as a job seeker. It just feels like it's something that is in my control is to put myself out there to my network. This is me. Here's what I have to offer. It is still scary. I understand people's frustrations with personal branding. They're like, why do I have to do this in order to get a job? Again, I don't like it either. I don't want it. But it was still just, it's something that you can do. There's even somebody who posted one who's not even necessarily looking for a job. It's just like a way to present yourself packaged together and just to get aligned. I think it's just a powerful exercise for anybody and everybody to do in their job search in the meantime. I don't think it hurts unless you don't design your post well. I think your
Hmm.
open to work post is like the most important one that you do. It's where people will probably view your profile the most, so it's important you do the most with it when you can.
Hmm. You were just reminding me. So that visual cover letter. So when I initially had connected with Katie, which
Yeah.
I met Katie through a sales community called Troy's Sales Community that we've talked about in the past, but she had reached out to me. She's someone in my network was hiring for a role that she wanted to apply to. She
Hmm.
asked if I could refer her, and I
Hmm.
was like, "Cool, send me your resume if you have a cover letter." Da, da, da. And she sent me this package, and
Yeah.
it included the visual cover letter, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Girl, you are doing the most right
Yes.
now. Like,
Yes.
what is this?"
Yes. I love Katie. I was very inspired. She's been a great support. And like she will go all out for it. Like she puts her all into those things, and I really admire and respect that. And again, I think that's how she has landed her current role. It got her foot in the door. Still, she had to do everything else, the follow up, the keeping in touch to get where she's at. That's how I connected with her is because she saw my visual cover letter, and then we developed an actual friendship over it.
Oh, I love that. It's
Yeah.
so funny this time in our lives right now where you're just meeting with people. I mean, I was chatting with Katie all through my job search and
Right.
and chatting with her about her new job that she got about a month ago or so.
Mm.
And then she obviously introduced me to you, and
Right.
yeah, it's been amazing. But so did you create both the carousel and the cover letter in Canva? Because Katie is the one who introduced me to Canva as well.
I should have mentioned that of like putting it together. I'm a Marco Polo ambassador and I am also a huge Canva ambassador. If Canva is ever listening to this podcast, if you ever want to make an office in Seattle or I will move anywhere for you, I would love to work for Canva. I
I
I
know,
love
right?
love 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 Canva.
Yes,
Yeah,
me
that's how
too.
I made it. Is I made it in with Canva. So again, it was just maybe another thing to get to use this tool that I love and like get to be creative with it, getting to marry that with it as well. But yeah, that's it started in Canva. And then we made one in Figma as well, which is a very, very popular design tool.
Hmm. Hmm. And I actually have been exposed to both Canva and Figma through the contract job that I had as
Yeah,
my bridge job. And I was like,
yeah.
okay. And then I was like, I don't know, somebody was pushing me to do the video aspect of the podcast. And I was like, all right, well, let me make like real podcast album art for each episode. And so I used Canva
Yes,
and I was like,
yes,
oh, cool. This is so
yes.
fun.
Oh, it's so fun. I think it's so cool. I love the way that it's empowered other people to get to practice. It's more accessible, I think, to use your creative skills and make stuff.
Yeah. And then the way that you stand out, like putting a digital business card in your email signature so that when you're
Yep.
reaching out to people and making it look super polished, and then maybe your
Mhm.
like LinkedIn header, that background panel picture,
Yep, 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 yep.
designing that. Like, yeah, there's just ways to, and then I've seen a lot more people experimenting with their headshot pictures in
Yeah,
LinkedIn
yeah,
too,
yeah.
because, you want to make sure it looks cool, clean, fresh, and,
Hmm.
not like a really bad selfie from a lake house or something.
Right. Again, I mean, I would love to live in a world where anybody you could post those sort of things. With, like I said, the personal branding, everyone can brand however they want. Like I said, I think what's cool, it can give you a little bit more, do things a little bit differently, present yourself in a different way than maybe just like a selfie at the
Yeah.
lake.
I mean, you really have to differentiate yourself in this
Yeah,
job market because it is
yeah.
so competitive. And if you can't do that on paper, I mean, it's really networking and then making a splash, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, I think people who, again, I completely understand. I really want to validate. I get this whole. I'm not a business. I'm. Why do I have to be personal branding? I guess for me, a kind of a way to reframe it has just been storytelling as well, where I'm just like, this is just how I'm telling my story about myself, and it's a great way to practice those storytelling skills. And that's something that I genuinely enjoy. I understand that not everybody does, and I can understand why that would be frustrating to have to do this, but I think it's a great way to, again, just showcase creativity and just how do you want to tell your story? Don't think of it as like, how do I want to sell myself necessarily, even though that's also, it's however you want to frame it, but that's just a way that's really resonated with me.
It just, you have to cut through the noise
Yeah.
because in conversations that I've had, it used to be in normal times, a company would post a job on LinkedIn, let's say they're using LinkedIn, and over the course of 5 days, maybe they would get 50 people to apply to this job.
Hmm.
And then what they're ideally looking to do is hire maybe 2 to 3 people. So they're going to whittle that down to like a couple, like 15, and they would be able to hire people.
Hmm.
Now, they post a job, and within the first 2 hours, they have thousands of resumes to go through. And the majority of them are not really the right candidate because people are so desperate. They just are applying to any and all things.
Yeah.
And so it's important to do things that differentiate you. So like if you're a designer, you better have some pretty cool design
Yeah. Right.
portfolio pieces to show.
Right.
And for me in my world in sales, like you have to multi-thread into the organization. You need
Hmm.
to do a bunch of outbound messaging and cold calling, and maybe you want to have a good spot. We talked a little bit about the aligned digital sales room, using that as your digital resume page or whatever, Notion, and then using tools like Canva and Figma to make things look really, really clean. So, and you know
Yeah.
what? It's too bad if you don't want to. I mean, these are the times. So if you don't want to participate in this, then go find an industry where it's not required. But tech,
Right.
you have to.
Right. Yeah. I just like right now where things are at. I totally agree. I had a couple of things I wanted to say with this of for anybody who is somebody is listening to this and is like, okay, I'm going to make my own sort of super hireable post or do something along those lines. I think it's really important to show that in your post. You can't say I'm a storyteller or whatever it is, or I'm really this, and then not actually show that ability in your post. I think that's another really key thing is I'm seeing a lot of people be really vague about it. And I even look back at my post now and I'm like, you know what, I could have been more specific and I want to rework it, like reiterate on it. I would love to see somebody kind of reiterate more on the super high post and take it somewhere else, do something different with it, make changes, things I should have done differently in that and make it their own. I think that's also just really key. And then still getting to show how are you these things that you're saying that you are from your post. It's a good way to get attention, but then you have to be able to back it up as well. The other thing I wanted to say was I saw this TikTok like months ago that this guy was talking about how what's really crazy about this day and age that we live in when it comes to job searching is back in the day, you would post an ad in the newspaper saying you got like a limited amount of space. You had to pay for every sentence or whatever. So they had to be really careful with what they put in their job description. Then you would only get like local talent, like that is who came in. And so these employers knew coming into it, their employees they'd have to invest in them, that they were going to have to be invested in them long term. And now we live in this age where they have all the real estate to post as long of a job description as they want. They can reach anyone and everyone everywhere. And again, where I just think you're seeing this unfortunate power dynamic now where employers are not as incentivized to be invested in their employees long term. They're like, you know what, I can pick you up and then I'm going to be able to find somebody else just as quickly if you leave. And so I think that that's been a huge disservice to just the workforce in general, is that you're not seeing employers being as invested in their employees. And I think it's been detrimental to us. The internet is wonderful and great for so many things. And also, how are we being intentional with it, concise, and is this really what we want ultimately for the workforce, is for employers to not be as invested in the people they bring on.
Wow, that you're blowing my mind because I
The
haven't
TikTok, it
even.
blew my mind. That I can't take credit for it, but I've thought about it nonstop since I
That
saw
is
it.
wild. I haven't thought about it either, and I've been doing this for months. Oh man.
Yeah,
Like my first job I found from a Craigslist
yeah,
ad,
yeah,
and I've been in staffing for the last like 10 years.
right,
But you just described the reason why the freelancer knowledge worker economy exists
yeah,
because but it's the other side of that coin. It's like
hmm,
freelancers exist because they wanted more autonomy in their work schedules and
hmm,
flexibility, and they didn't want to work for the man. They didn't want to have one employer. They wanted to be their own entrepreneurs that could build their own portfolio of customers, and those would be like that's the work that you did. If
hmm,
you knew how to market yourself and do a thing, right? And now
yeah,
there's over 10,000 skills categories of knowledge workers. You can do any and all things that you can do with a computer. You're basically now you just need to market yourself. Oh, wow. So, and the other side of that coin is that employers can treat employees as disposable workers.
right. They're not incentivized. I hear that discussion all the time. It does. It costs you more to lose an employee. You should give them that little raise or whatever if it means keeping them on, because onboarding, that's going to cost you more. But I still would just be so curious to talk to more employers overall, where I'm like, do you see that? At the same time, they're not as incentivized at the end of the day to keep people on. People are just more disposable because of like it was said in the TikTok, just this free real estate that is given to employers to do it however they want.
It's like having buyer's remorse. And the first little ding that you see, you're just like,
Yeah,
we can find someone else who doesn't have that ding. But
right.
I mean, there definitely are companies that are more interested in people development and offering really strong work
Sure.
cultures and stuff. But wow.
Yeah. I think the job description part was interesting to me too. You can write as long of a job. I know it's expensive for employers to have LinkedIn job descriptions, but the fact that you can just put whatever you want and be like, you have to be this perfect, fit every single box, it's unrealistic, it feels. Or they are able to find these people, but how is that making this job process harder? Or if you're finding people then who, I hear the stories about people who relocate, they're like, okay, we found our unicorn on the other coast, let's bring them over, then just to lay them off. It just feels like there's a lot of, in tech, the cool phrase was move fast, break things, whatever.
Right,
And
right.
that's
Yeah.
something that I'm like, is that what we want? Can we just stop and think about that for a second? There's actual consequences that come from, which we see with in layoff land, is so many real consequences that are happening for folks because they took a chance. They said, I'm going to invest my time and efforts here at this company, and then just get discarded. And now their lives are kind of turned upside down. And another post I saw somewhere was talking about, like, where do we go now? We hear that we overhired during the pandemic. There's not enough people or not enough jobs. Again, AI is just going to take our jobs, whatever. So then it's like, okay, cool. But now where are we supposed to go? Those of us, if there's not enough room in tech for folks, then we have to go elsewhere. Is it trade school? Are we going to see people not going to college? I know that's something I've had so many conversations with job seekers now who all said, I got my master's, I got a PhD, like with this promise of I would be able to get a job no problem. And so now people are realizing, like, wait, this isn't true. That doesn't mean that their job stability is not a thing anymore. And so people are feeling lied to or feeling betrayed, and which I completely understand. It's, again, it's like, okay, as a society, as a workforce, what do we ultimately want? So should people not be going to college, getting all this student debt if they're not going to be able to actually pay it off? So I'm so empathetic, sympathetic to fellow job seekers. I just wish that there was more focus or conversation about the systemic how can we solve this? And also, as a job seeker, how do you help yourself? It is this really crazy hard balancing game that you've got to play all the time of acknowledging extenuating circumstances outside of your control and also what is in your control.
Wow, I mean, we don't have time to
Sorry,
unpack.
that was, wow, what a tangent I just went on.
I love it
Sorry.
though. It's
Sorry.
very interesting. And literally, I was recording another episode right before we got on, and I was like, man, we're going to have a part two. And I think I say it in every single call I have with anybody. And then so
Yeah, there's a
now,
lot to
Kaylee, we're
talk
going to
about.
have a part
There's
two.
there's a lot to talk about with all of it. So I can talk about it for a very long time.
So what I've heard is that Gen Z, because of the current job market and what they're seeing their parents go through, they
Yeah,
are kind of pivoting more towards trade schools and having
yeah,
a trade versus going to a university for some sort of, I don't know, like soft skill degree
yeah.
and having mountains of student loan debt. The other thing I heard is that all these Gen Zers that went to school for software engineering with the promise that there was an endless amount of software engineering jobs are finding now as they graduate that there are not actually.
What? What?
And yeah, so
Yeah.
like, and then I feel like the only option really, especially if you're a software engineer kind of person,
Mm-hmm.
is now you need to go be an entrepreneur. Now you're
Yeah.
going to have to go build your own
Or go
business
make your
because
own
there's
business.
not,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Which
But you have all this debt.
yeah, I could talk about that for a long time where I'm like, I get having multiple streams of income and it can also just be really overwhelming. Sometimes I'm like, I want to work on a team. I want to work with people. I want to be embedded in a product or something. I like collaborative work. And so I think there's something you said about, do we all have to be entrepreneurs now? I didn't want to, but what are my other options if I want to make a good income, do certain things, have a certain lifestyle? I don't
I
know.
mean, I was going to say there's one thing you could do, but two out of the three things that you just said wouldn't really apply. And then I kind of thought about it too. But if you wanted to go back into working for a team and doing, what did your mentor tell you to do? To do
Just like at a
product,
startup, yeah, go be a product support specialist.
go be a product support
Yeah,
specialist
maybe it'll be
somewhere.
full circle and we'll go back to, honestly, yeah, I could. I have looked at those jobs. I could. It's hard.
But you
It would
wouldn't
be
be
hard.
happy
But
because you're passionate about this user experience, research,
yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and yeah, the only other thing I'm seeing a lot of people build their own consulting or agencies. So, like going fractional. And you've done contract work, so you know what that's all about.
It's not ideal. There's pros and cons. Pros and cons. I would just really like to be embedded somewhere. I feel like I'm invested in it long term rather than just these short snippets. But maybe that's not an option anymore. I don't know.
I would say make sure that you're reaching out to any and all employees of Canva every week. Make
I
sure you
know.
continue to contact them
I'm
in one
gonna keep
day.
writing my letters to the CEO saying, "Build an office in Seattle, please. Come
I
here.
would,
There's so many of us here. I will be your sole employee in Seattle. I don't care. I'll do it. Yeah,
where
I'll
are
continue
they?
doing that."
Where are they headquartered?
They're technically in Australia.
Oh
That's where
yeah.
they started, was in Sydney, but they have an
Yes.
office in San Francisco and Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I need to move to Austin. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Kaylee, for being on the show today. I know we're at time. The whole episode talked about advice for job seekers. I loved it. And the whole conversation, so many insights, so many ways and perspectives to look at the issue. I wish you the best of luck in
Thank you
hoping that
so
you
much.
hear really good news. I can't wait to shout it from the rooftops for you.
Thank you so much.
And maybe before we publish this episode next Friday, I can do an intro and be like, and she got
And she did it.
the job.
And even if I didn't, I'll tell you if I didn't, and you can say, you know what, it's okay. Yeah. Either way, we can let the people know. It's
We'll
fine.
let the people know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kaylee. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so happy that we met, and you have shared so much with us that I think will be really, really valuable to other folks. And I'm wishing you so much luck on your the news of your interviews, and I hope it is good news. And I can't wait to share that with everybody. But thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thoroughly enjoyed my time here. Happy to come back again.
That was today's episode of Tech Wrecked. If you or someone you know would like to be on the show, email techwreckedpodcast@gmail.com and we'll get it scheduled. See you next time.